The agenda is set. I'm Brent Goff in Berlin. It's time to talk. Sochi and the Winter Games of our discontent. Welcome to the Putin Olympics. The changing winds of Germany's energy revolution, a renewable plan that's suddenly not so green. And one person, one vote. The Swiss love their direct democracy, but is it a model for the rest of us? Welcome to the show, everyone. I've invited three people today to talk, ponder, and pry apart these headlines. More referendums, more votes, more say. Michael Effler joins me. He is with the German Association today, More Democracy. Michael, it's good to have you on the show.
Hello.
Well, she is bullish on Germany's renewable energy future, but she says there is some serious political weightlifting still to be done. I'm happy to welcome to the show Sabrina Schulz. She is one of Germany's brightest energy policy minds. She is with the E3G think tank here in Berlin. Sabrina, good to have you on the show.
Good morning.
And in just a couple of days, the Winter Olympics begin in Sochi, Russia. Klaus Häuslein is vice president of the European Gay and Lesbian Sport Federation. He has been on the show before. Klaus, you, the gay, lesbian athletes, the spectators, we hear that you're all welcome in Sochi. Are you going?
I'm not going, no.
What are you advising gay and lesbian athletes to do?
Well, they should go and they should respect the laws.
Okay. And you're comfortable with that?
Well, not at all. We had a lot of discussion previously and had a meeting with the IOC just yesterday with representatives of the Bright House International Coalition, which is a coalition of LGBT, human rights and sports organizations. And on the agenda was the Principle 6 of the Olympic Charter, and to get it maybe revised for future games. But
okay, so what came out of this meeting there, though? I remember when you were on the show last summer, you said you wanted to have a gay lesbian pride house built in the Olympics or opened.
Yeah, that was unfortunately not possible in Sochi. We have...
what did the IOC tell you? Because you asked them for a building permit, right?
Actually, it was not the IOC which we have been talking with, but the German Olympic National Committee, the DOSB. And they told us for several reasons it wouldn't be possible to host such an event in their hospitality house in Sochi.
And what were the reasons?
Well, there were more or less political reasons. One of the, for my opinion, most weird question that they asked us, what would be our advantage of hosting such an event in Sochi?
I'm trying to get this right. What would be the advantage of the German Olympic
team in Sochi? Would they bring back more medals if they do that?
What about winning more credibility?
Yeah, that was our answer as well. That was our thought. Just doing something to make people really realize that they are welcome, that the National Olympic Committee is standing behind them. We might have Olympians which are gay or lesbian and who are participating, and if they at least know that they are having the complete support of their national organization, that would be most helpful for them, and that might even affect their performance in the competitions.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about what's happening at the Olympics in just a second, but let's talk about the headlines right now that are coming out of Sochi. We've got a ring of steel around Sochi to keep out the terror. Dozens of black widows are under house arrest in Russia. Protest, yes, but don't do it where the world can see or hear you. And gays are allowed in Sochi, but they risk arrest if they show their true colors. Now, these are the headlines leading the world to the opening ceremony of the 2014 Winter Olympic Games. Not the public relations coup that the Kremlin had hoped for, and not a bargain either at $50 billion. So, money, medals, politics. What have the Olympics become?
Athletes have often used the Olympics and World Championships as a forum for protest. In 1968, the issue was equal rights for blacks. In Beijing 2008, protesters demanded freedom for Tibet. In Moscow last year, two female Russian athletes kissed as a protest against Vladimir Putin's intolerance of homosexuality. What do Germans think about the prospect of their country's athletes protesting at the Sochi Olympics?
They're going there for sports, and I think we should keep sports and politics separate.
Sport und Politik.
If it reflects their opinions, they should go ahead.
I think there are other ways to protest, not necessarily at the Olympics.
I say they should be allowed to, but people have to decide for themselves if it's a good idea.
Would you endorse it?
I'm all for it. I think it's right for people to be allowed to express their views, especially athletes.
I mean, we've heard from Klaus that the German Olympic team, the committee, they want to keep sports and politics separated. Let me ask everyone here at the table. Do you agree? Sabrina, I mean, are the Olympics a place for sports, not a place for politics and protest?
Possibly an ideal case scenario. However, the Olympic Games have never been unpolitical. So I guess we should just embrace the truth and have the really important topics that should feature at the Olympic Games.
You agree, Michelle?
I agree with that, definitely. You cannot really separate sports and politics. You should respect the laws, I agree with him, but it might be possible to make small symbols, and it must be open for some form of intelligent protests.
We all live here in Germany. What's your reaction when you hear Klaus say that the German national team, the Olympic Committee, told him that there was no advantage to making gay and lesbian athletes feel at home in Sochi? What's your reaction to that? I mean, this is your Olympic team.
It is the sad truth, I must say. But this, as I said before, we shouldn't just live with it, but embrace the issues that are important and do the protests that are necessary.
But Klaus is saying that they're not being allowed to embrace the issues. I mean, are you offended by that? Are you upset by what the national team is doing?
I think they've got the right to choose for themselves what to do and how to decide.
Michelle, what do you say? Is the German Olympic Committee, are they on the right track here?
No, I don't think so. They are never on the right track, I think, because Olympic committees are always looking on medals, they look on sports from a very close perspective. But I think when it comes to such games in some form problematic country, then it must be a space for some protest, for some political activism. Not to get rid of the sport. The sport should prevail definitely at the Olympic Games, but there must be some space for human rights and for freedom of speech.
Yeah, but that's not happening. I mean, and I'm wondering where is the outrage? Even if you want to go to Sochi and protest about anything. I mean, there's plenty to protest in Russia. You've got what happened to Khodorkovsky. You've got the situation with Pussy Rights. You know, they were released, but you had that situation. You've got dissidents who are being imprisoned. Press freedom is being infringed upon. There are all these accusations. But if you want to go to Sochi and protest, you have to do it about 30 minutes away from Sochi where no one will see or hear you. Is that acceptable, Klaus?
Well, it's definitely not acceptable at all. I mean, the Olympics or the Olympic idea is about inclusion and participation, and it should not primarily be about having the best possible result. And inclusion means also to include minorities, means also to really embrace all aspects of human rights. And we cannot simply switch off human rights just because we want to have a medal or two, just to please a government which is not respecting human rights at all. I mean, human rights, we are not only talking about LGBT rights, we are also talking about workers who are forced to work at the sites to build the venues, to build the hotels under conditions which we knew from slavery centuries. We know about the conflicts that we have in the Caucasian area there, so there's also a lot of conflict in that area. So these Olympics will be under conditions which we probably will not enjoy. And
well, people are saying that these are the most dangerous Olympic Games in history.
Probably you will see more security and safety people there than you will see spectators. And I don't know if athletes will really feel comfortable under these conditions.
If they don't feel comfortable, why are you telling them to go?
Well, we talked about it to ask for boycotts, to call for a boycott, and then we realized that that won't help the people in Russia either. I mean, if you go, you go because you want to go there. You have, as an athlete, prepared yourself for many, many years to be part of this competition. So it's your own decision. If you want to take the risk to go there, then go there. Take your security measurements, respect the laws, and participate. And if you have the chance, then speak out.
What was your reaction, Klaus, when the mayor of Sochi said that there are no homosexuals in his city?
Well, might be really the case that they have really deported and eliminated everyone who was there. On the other side, I know similar statements from the Italian national football coach who some years ago said, well, I have never seen a gay football player in the first league in Italy. So either he is ignorant or they really have eliminated the gay people from Sochi.
The status of human rights in Russia, are they being helped or are they being hurt by having the Olympics in Russia?
Well, at the first glance, it seemed that it could be a support for the Russian people, because the world is now focusing on Russia. On the other side, we all know what happened in 2008 in China. Everyone was very much focused on human rights in China, and when the Olympics were over, the situation was just as before, if not worse. So I'm not really convinced.
Isn't that what's going to happen this time in Russia?
There is a slight hope that this will not happen immediately, since there's also the FIFA World Cup in a couple of years in Russia. So the media might go on to monitor what's going on there. But at least after then, it might happen the same what we experienced in China.
Let me ask everyone at the table here, do we believe that the situation for human rights is going to be better in Russia post-Olympics? What do you think?
It might or might not have an impact, but what really matters is what happens domestically after the Olympic Games. How do people respond? What opportunities do they see? To what extent do they feel motivated to ask for more democracy, to go on the streets, to ask for an end of nepotism and cronyism? It depends on the courage of the people in Russia, what happens after the Olympic Games.
Yeah. The courage, of course, that we know how easily they can land in jail if they try to show that courage. Michelle, what do you say?
I don't think that the situation will be better after the Olympics. I think the focus is on the games for the 2 or 3 weeks, and afterwards there will be another focus, another part of the world, and it depends on the people in Russia. It's a hard struggle, I think, for human rights and for democracy as well in Russia. Be it Olympic Games or not, and I don't think only the Olympics will change a lot.
The Olympic Charter, and I'm reading from the fundamental principles here, says that the practice of sport is a human right, and every individual must have the possibility to practice sport without discrimination of any kind, and in the Olympic spirit. When you hear that, isn't the situation with human rights in Russia, isn't that a direct violation of the Olympic Charter?
In a kind of way, yes. In another kind, no, because the Russian laws do not expel any athlete for being gay to participate. So you're allowed to run in any competition regardless of your sexual orientation. You're just not allowed to talk about it if there is the risk that minors could listen to you. So
yeah, but wait a minute though. What about if an Olympic athlete wins a gold medal and let's say it's a lesbian, and let's say she's on television and her partner runs up to congratulate her, she hugs her partner and she kisses her. She can be arrested then, can't she?
That's the point where I say in a kind that is really where we not respect the Olympic Charter and where we really have this problem. And that is what we were talking about with the IOC in our meeting that we had yesterday, to really modify the Principle 6, which then should say in a future version that this is prohibited, to really put sanctions on people who are doing something for a sexual orientation, but it can also be like a religious orientation, race or whatever.
Did you get a promise of any sort from this meeting?
No, it's too early. Actually, I have only got a very short message from the representatives who met the IOC yesterday. It happened yesterday in the late afternoon, so I don't have the complete content of this meeting yet. It's too early. And I don't expect that we have a concrete result within this few days that we have until the Olympics start. But maybe for the next edition of the Olympics in 4 years, that might happen.
If I read here in the charter, it says, in the event of non-compliance with the Olympic Charter, the IOC is entitled to withdraw at any time and with immediate effect the organization of the Olympic Games from the host city. Did you read this to the IOC meeting that you were at yesterday? I mean, did you make it clear?
I wasn't at the meeting. It was representatives of our
But your organization, did you guys make this point clear?
Actually, I don't know. I don't have any information about what was the exact wording of what everyone was saying there, because I just got the email this morning, so I was not having any concrete information about that. But if that is the case, we should start much earlier to think about such problems. Why do we give such events to countries like Russia and like China, where we know right from the beginning that human rights are not existent? You know that the IOC has been burned PR-wise by Beijing and now by Sochi. Do you think the IOC has learned a lesson? No. Clearly no, because every statement that we hear from the IOC, even what we hear from the new president of the IOC, is that he is enthusiastic and happy about the situation. Everything is going well, and he's so much convinced that everything is going well. So definitely he has not learned anything, or he's simply closing his eyes.
I mean, that's quite an indictment, isn't it, about the Olympic movement? Is there a reason then to be hopeful about the future of the Olympics as being an event that actually improves the human condition?
There's always a reason to be hopeful. At the end of the day, it depends on people, what they make of the Olympics. It depends on the athletes in particular, what they make of the Olympic spirit.
That's a diplomatic answer there. I mean, I'm still wondering if there's a real reason for hope. What do you say, Mishael?
Yeah, as I said before, I don't think that there is real reason for hope to believe in the IOC, but it's maybe a good reason to believe in the Russian people, that they will fight for more human rights and want more democracy. We will see. We
will definitely see. Well, listen, we would like for you to keep the conversation going. Tell me what Sochi stands for to you. I'd like for you to tweet me at #DWAgenda. Let's find out what the world's thinking. Well, if there were a situation room for Germany's green energy revolution, it would be on red alert right now. Consumers here in Germany face the highest energy bills in all of Europe. So the new government is slashing wind and solar subsidies to bring down electricity prices. Green energy companies say they'll perish without public money. And then there's Germany's exit from nuclear power and its promise to cut CO2 emissions drastically by 2020. Yet coal burning soared in 2013 to its highest level in 20 years. 50 shades of green in Germany, and nobody's happy.
3 years ago, it looked like Germany was paving the way to a nuclear energy phase-out by 2022, with the share of renewable energy to be doubled. Money was poured into solar and wind power thanks to generous government subsidies. Now it's a very different story. The government says it's scaling back subsidies and renewable energy firms are going bankrupt. The new economics minister says the changes are necessary to avoid wrecking the economy.
We have to show that a successful industrial economy is compatible with the shift in energy sources. Otherwise, no one will follow this path to protect the environment.
Is Germany still showing the way to a green future or setting an example of how not to go about it?
That is a question, isn't it, Sabrina? The green revolution in Germany, is it over?
No, it's only about to start, I would say. It hasn't even begun yet. Now, we did have an announcement in 2011 that Germany would phase out its nuclear power. But nothing really happened for 2 years, and now it's up to the new government coalition to bring about real change in the energy system in Germany.
And you think what has been announced is real change, cutting subsidies for wind and solar energy?
Technically speaking, it was not subsidies. It all goes back to what was first decided 20 years ago. Feed-in tariffs were introduced to promote solar energy, to promote wind energy, to make them kind of marketable, to make them affordable. Because in the beginning, of course, they were really expensive. So it took some kind of technology support in order to make them what they are at the moment.
So you're saying the industries don't need that government help anymore?
They should not need it anymore. It is about time now that these technologies become marketable. However, it does matter greatly what happens to the rest of the energy system. We've got a really complex energy system.
I mean, well, help me understand that. I want to stick with the wind and the solar just for a second, because that's really where Germany has made a name for itself. We know that the Chinese, they make solar panels much more cheaply than the Germans do now.
Which is fantastic. The Germans brought them the technology, the Chinese produce for the rest of the world, and this makes solar energy affordable for everyone.
But what does that mean for the German solar power companies?
That they have to become even better. They have to invent and produce solar panels which are even more efficient.
Is that happening?
It's not really happening. And yes, cutting the subsidies, as you call it, certainly will hurt the industry a lot. But see, the concept that Sigmar Gabriel presented does not make anyone happy.
That's the economics and energy minister, right?
Precisely. It doesn't make anyone happy. So that in and of itself is promising. So no one really likes
his ideas. Let's talk about who is happy here. I mean, I think it costs, what does it cost Germans? 24 billion euros a year in higher electricity bills because of Germany's green revolution. Why do Germans have to pay so much more for power than the rest of Europe? Is that the price of being green in Europe?
This is really the question we're all asking ourselves. Why are the prices so high? It's not only because the government wanted to promote green energies. It's because energy-intensive industries were exempted from the renewable surcharge. So who had to...
Coal-fired plants, for example?
The renewable surcharge was the sum of money that is the sum of money that's being paid for wind and solar power. Energy-intensive industries, heavy industries are being exempted.
So they're getting a free ride. So coal-fired plants, for example, they're getting a free ride on this.
Yeah, I'm more talking about energy-intensives in the manufacturing industry. Okay. Yes, they are getting a free ride.
Oh, so manufacturing, so companies that need a lot of energy.
Yeah, but apparently also companies producing cuckoo clocks are being exempted.
Oh, okay, cuckoo clocks. Well, yeah, that's not what we're talking about Switzerland in a second. But what about nuclear power? A lot of people say that Germany really did itself a disservice, that it was on the track to meet these 2020 goals. But then, when the government of Angela Merkel said we are getting out of nuclear power, Germany shot itself in the foot by doing that because it's not doable with the current technology. Is that true?
It's not really true because you really have to differentiate between the nuclear issue and the carbon issue. We've had anti-nuclear protests and anti-nuclear movement in Germany since the 1970s. It was led by scientists. It was a very credible movement. Eventually, it led to a phase-out of nuclear power in 2000 already. Yeah. That was a step that the then red-green coalition government decided on. Angela Merkel then in 2010 backstepped and extended nuclear power for the years to come. So the nuclear power industry was back,
kept
essentially.
Alive, yeah.
However, 4 months later only, Fukushima happened. People were back on the streets protesting, and Angela Merkel's government realized that this was not the time anymore.
So it was a political decision, but not necessarily a smart economic or technological decision.
It could be all of the above. However, it has to be done rightly. And
well, you say scientists. Scientists are saying that Germany will have to more than double renewables contribution to energy from 17% to 38% in order to reach this 40% target by the year 2020. Is that doable?
Technologically, it's all doable. It depends not so much on the price tag, the total price tag. It depends on who will be paying the price. There will have to be enormous structural reform or structural change in the German industrial base in order to bring about an industry, in order to bring about an energy industry that can live up to the expectations of a renewables energy revolution.
This energy revolution, Michelle, the will of the people?
They've never been asked on the energy revolution, but if you look at public opinion polls, for example, on nuclear energy, you will have a clear picture that around 70% are against nuclear policy in Germany. And if you look at referendum results in Italy or in Austria, when the people have the chance to vote on nuclear energy, they always vote no. And so I think that the energy revolution more or less is the will of the people, but it has to be made better.
But there are two different things here. There's the will of the people that they want to get out of nuclear energy.
Yeah.
But what about their power bills every month? Now, let's hold a plebiscite on that. Are Germans willing to pay more than anyone else in Europe to push the green revolution to the next chapter?
I'm not sure. We can only speculate on that.
But they haven't been asked.
I don't know. But I'm sure that the advantages of the Energiewende are much more worse to fight for than the possible disadvantages. If you talk on prices, you're always talking on prices, but the coal energy, look on nuclear energy, was subsidized for around 20, 30, 40 years. And now we're just starting with the green revolution, and I think you have to bring it into balance.
You have to have the consumers on your side, right, Sabrina? I mean, you can't make a revolution successful if you don't have the consumers pulling the line with you. The consumers are very upset. I mean, they pay a lot for electricity in Germany.
That's true, but they are still on the side of the Energiewende. They still want the energy transformation. Now, the steps that are being, or the policies that are being put in place now will reduce the price for electricity in the short to medium term. However, we must not forget one thing. Electricity prices would rise anyway for lots and lots of reasons. So it's the right thing now to go 80, ideally 100% renewables, to save us costs in the long term.
A politician is going to have a problem taking that argument. Power is going to become more expensive anyway, so accept that and let me throw on 20% more and make it 40% more expensive. Is that something you can sell the public?
No, it's completely unacceptable, especially because, as I said before, energy-intensive industries are still exempted from a large. And
that's what needs to change, you say?
That's one of the things that has to change.
The carbon tax, for example, has to be made more expensive.
It would be ideal to introduce a carbon tax in the first place, not only in Germany, but European-wide.
European-wide, yeah. Klaus, I mean, when you look at this discussion, what's happened in Germany, I mean, how does it look from where you sit in Italy?
Well, we don't have these discussions in Italy at all. We had a discussion about ceasing using nuclear energy. But all this doesn't make any sense if you see the isolated case. If you see like a single country like Italy, like Germany, like whatever, switching off all the nuclear plants, that doesn't make any sense if the rest of Europe isn't doing the same. I mean, if you are talking about environment protection, about risks of nuclear energy, then we would have to come to the conclusion, if you really are serious about that, then we have to switch it off everywhere, not only in Germany. And that makes it...
Like France, for example. France, you know, is the lion's share.
I disagree with that. I think that's a question up to every nation state in the European Union. It's also in the European treaties that the energy system is up to the member states. And if France will try to have again and more nuclear power plants, they should do. But if Germany says no, we don't want to have nuclear power, or Switzerland or Austria, so why not? I don't think we need a European model on that.
Would you defend that right if there were a nuclear meltdown in a French nuclear power plant and the winds blew everything to Germany?
I'm against nuclear power for 30 years or so.
But why not have an energy-wide policy?
It's up to the French people and up to the French politicians to decide this question, of course.
We're running out of time. So let me ask you, bring this. Why not a European-wide energy policy? Why do the Germans have to push it by themselves?
That's the unfortunate piece of the equation, really. No, I do agree that energy policy is still one of the very last sovereign issues on which EU member states can decide on, together with security and defense policy. However, even in security and defense, we see that nation states, individual member states of the European Union, are not able to do it anymore by themselves.
And that includes Germany.
And this includes Germany. We have to cooperate in the area of security and defense, and the same goes for energy as well. It will become much cheaper if we cooperated much more in the European Union on our energy systems. If we had transmission lines that connected all the different EU member states.
The grids.
Precisely.
Before we move on, yes or no, Germany's goals for the year 2020, will they be able to be met now?
The goals for the year?
CO2 emissions, yeah.
The 40% target will not be met. However, no one will really complain about it, because the target line that really matters is the one that the EU set for itself. And that does not foresee 40% for Germany. So nobody will be bothered, unfortunately.
And our electricity bills will not get cheaper.
They will become a little bit cheaper, but hopefully people will understand what they are paying the higher prices for.
There you go. All right. But cheaper energy bills, I think everyone will be happy about. We want you to keep this conversation going as well. Tell me if you agree. Red alert for Germany's green energy. Tweet me. There you see it. Hashtag DW Agenda. All right. 10 years ago, this week, Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook, a social media website that has changed how we share, talk, even think. The Arab Spring of 2011, many say not possible without social media. But long before Facebook and Twitter heralded a new era of political participation, there was Switzerland's one person, one vote direct democracy. You got an issue? You want a decision? Show enough signatures and a referendum is guaranteed. Simple, efficient, but not without caveats. This weekend, the Swiss go to the polls in a referendum on reintroducing immigration quotas. Critics say this kind of direct democracy easily becomes tools of populism and discrimination, not just politics.
This isn't the first time a Swiss referendum about immigration has made headlines. In 2009, the right-wing SVP party won a vote to introduce a ban on building new minarets. The campaigners were accused of racist scaremongering, but more than 57% of voters backed the initiative. It was one of a string of campaigns by the SVP that focused on fears about immigrants. In 2008, the party wanted to introduce local voting on whether to grant immigrants Swiss citizenship. A referendum on that resulted in a resounding no vote. Immigration is not the only issue brought up in referendums. Last year's ballot measures covered everything from road tax to an attempt to cut the pay of top managers. But by boiling issues down to a simple yes or no, is there a risk of playing into the hands of populist politicians?
Is this idea of direct democracy, is it flawed?
Why should it? I don't think so.
You don't see a danger. Critics in Switzerland say that it's a dangerous means of democracy because extremist groups can take it and gain political capital with it.
First of all, direct democracy is not only in Switzerland. We have a lot of countries in the world, Australia, Italy, the US states, the German Länder that use direct democracy for decades. Switzerland is the most common example, of course. And if you look at the topics of referenda in Switzerland, you have only a small part of them dealing with minority issues, very controversial stuff. It becomes more and more popular in the last 10, 15 years, but normally they decide on ordinary issues from traffic policy to energy policy, school policy, and something like that.
That's local politics.
Not only local, also on the national level in Switzerland. They decide on big streets, on the Gotthard tunnel, for example. There was a national referendum in Switzerland on European issues, and also on migration laws and on minaret laws, but this is only a small amount of that. And there's a big difference between Switzerland and Germany. In Switzerland, international law is under the Swiss constitution. The Swiss say we have the people's will overrides everything, even international law. And that's not the case in Germany. In Germany, international law prevails German law and also constitutional law. And Here, direct democracy, citizen initiatives will be pre-checked before they come to the referendum ballot. So it's not possible that you can vote on everything in Germany. First, there is a constitutional check.
Right.
That's good.
So no referendum could be held in Germany, for example, that would be in direct, right? That would be in violation.
Not possible in Germany.
Do you trust the public in a referendum more than you trust the democratically elected parliament of Germany?
I trust both. We need both. We need parliaments, we need governments, we need representative democracy. But if the representatives become not more representative anymore, then we need to have a correction mechanism. We need to intervene. We cannot wait for 4 or 5 years to the next election when we want to correct a specific decision. But when we have the possibility of an initiative, we can intervene, and then we can say, no, we don't want to have this electricity laws or this tax laws or whatever, and can take a decision themselves.
Do we all believe that a referendum is a check and balance on parliamentary democracy, Klaus?
Well, it can be, as we had recently as an example, the referendum about the Winter Olympics in Munich, when the Bavarian people voted against it. The risk I see is that this referendum requires a very high level of education of the people who are eligible to vote. Because otherwise we have the risk that people might simply vote for something or against something because in their own opinion it looks more comfortable for themselves. For example, if we would have to raise the VAT like other countries in the EU did,
tax, yeah.
Obviously, I would say, okay, I don't like this idea, I vote against it. But I might not be aware about the consequences that might have for the economy of my country.
Right, for education, for example,
yeah.
Right?
Exactly. So we would really have to be really very precise in what we can decide by a referendum and what we could not, because we might not have the education for doing that.
The voters have to be educated. What do you say, Sabrina?
The voters have to be educated, and there's a really good example that illustrates the story, and that was when just a few months ago the city of Berlin asked its citizens whether they wanted the city to buy back its power grid. The answer would have been yes, definitely. 3/4 of the people.
Yes.
I did say yes.
You said yes.
And the 3/4 of the people who participated said yes. However, 83%. The quorum, 83%. However, the quorum was not achieved, so not enough people participated. And this really makes me kind of ponder the question, is it because people feel disempowered and disenfranchised, or is it because people are simply lazy?
Maybe, yeah.
The answer is probably, we need to introduce a culture of participation so people get used to it.
Well, and that brings us to Facebook and social media. Isn't that the solution to get lazy voters to act?
No.
Why not?
No, I don't think so.
Why not?
Because Facebook or Twitter are good tools for participation, but also for a lot of other stuff. But they will not trigger political participation in a mass way. I don't think so.
Well, the director of,
you can discuss on these networks, but it doesn't bring them on the ballot.
Michel, a couple of weeks ago, the director of Human Rights Watch was on this show, and he said that access to the internet has now become a basic human right.
I agree.
You agree with that?
Yeah, definitely.
So if you agree with that, and everyone in Germany has access to the internet, why not allow electronic voting to help you in your push to have more referendums?
When it comes to electronic voting, first of all, you have to solve all security questions. It must be absolutely safe, absolutely secure. There is no country besides, I think, Estonia in the world that uses electronic possibilities for voting for elections. Only in Switzerland also some
Who do you not
cantons.
trust? Who do you not trust?
I not trust the technology. The technology can be hijacked.
Manipulated.
We have a lot of manipulated, yeah, of course. It needs to be absolutely secure and safe. It's also a question of trust. You have to trust the system, that it could not be hijacked by the state or by other
We're in a tough
institutions.
situation. You don't necessarily trust the parliament that much, and you don't trust the internet. So
No, I didn't say that. I said I trust also the parliaments, but also the people. We need both. We need to have a complex system. We need to have a mixed system of democracy.
But what about when
parliamentary
voter
and
turnout is so
direct.
low?
It is not low. The normal turnout in referendums in Germany is about 40%, and you cannot compare it with election turnouts, because in a referendum you only vote on one specific issue: school policy, energy policy, whatever. And this is much. This is not the case like in an election. In an election, you vote on the chancellor, on the next government, on the big political guidelines for the next 4 or 5 years.
We're running out of time. I want to pull this back to the beginning of our show and talk about human rights. If I think about big court decisions in the history of the world, where, for example, slavery has been banned or women have received the right to vote, those decisions did not come through plebiscites or referendum. Do we trust the people to make decisions about things such as human rights, Klaus?
Well, actually, that's a very good example, because in Switzerland, a referendum hindered really the women to vote for many, many years. There was a referendum, if I'm recalling it right, it was in '59. And from '59 to '71 or '72, women didn't have any voting rights there because of a referendum which was blocking them from voting. And if you say that the participation rate is 40% in a referendum, that means if you have a slight majority of then 21%, there's a very small minority who is then deciding about what's going on in our country. I'm not 100% sure if that was really reflecting what the people really want.
Well, in rights of the minority, can minority rights be guaranteed by direct democracy?
Yes, definitely. They can be guaranteed. It belongs to the rules. We have to look at the good combination of rule of law and democracy.
Okay.
As I said before,
the positive...
in Switzerland, there is no constitutional court. In Germany, there is a constitutional court that will check minority rights, even in dialogue democracy.
All right, before I let us go, Facebook is 10 years old. Is everyone here on Facebook?
Yes.
Yeah, and will we be on Facebook 10 years from now? Look into your crystal ball. Klaus, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
I'm not sure.
Okay, all right. Mark Zuckerberg is going to like this show. Keep the conversation going on Twitter and Facebook. Tell me what you think about the show. You can find me on Facebook, and you can tweet me at BrentGoffTV, or use the hashtag, you know the deal, DW Agenda. If you want to watch the show again, go to dw.de, or you can watch us on YouTube. I'm Brent Goff in Berlin. Join me next time when I set the agenda.